The hidden brilliance of the medieval era. History has painted the medieval period as a thousand-year night of ignorance and superstition, where human progress stood still and innovation slumbered. Nothing could be further from the truth. In monastery workshops, castle towers, and humble cottages across Europe, a handful of extraordinary minds were quietly revolutionizing our world. A monk who dared to remake time itself. A mysterious woman whose invention would clothe billions. A troubled genius whose quest for clarity would help half of humanity to see. These weren't just inventors. They were revolutionaries who, working by candlelight with quill and parchment, with hammer and anvil, with mortar and pestle, laid the foundation for our modern world. Their stories have been buried by time, overshadowed by the giants of the Renaissance who would follow them. But without these 5 medieval innovators, without their brilliant failures and accidental triumphs, the Renaissance itself might never have dawned. The monk who measured time. On a crisp autumn morning in 999 AD, as the Christian world held its breath waiting for the millennium, a former shepherd boy from the French countryside stood before the assembled powers of Rome. Gerbert of Aurillac, soon to become Pope Sylvester II, wasn't thinking about the end times that many feared were coming. He was obsessed with time itself. While others watched the sky for signs of the apocalypse, his mind raced with visions of gears and wheels, of water flowing through precisely calibrated chambers, of mechanical marvels that could slice the day into measurable moments. Few knew the extraordinary path that had brought him there. As a young monk, Gerbert had slipped away from his monastery and ventured into Muslim Spain, defying the religious boundaries of his era. In the libraries of Cordoba and Seville, he discovered mathematical secrets that would scandalize Europe, Arabic numerals that made complex calculations possible, astronomical instruments that tracked the dance of planets, and texts that revealed the lost wisdom of ancient Greece. His fellow monks whispered that he had learned dark magic, but Gerbert had discovered something far more powerful, the ability to measure and manipulate time itself. His mechanical clock designs were unlike anything Europe had seen before. Unlike the crude water clocks of antiquity, Gerbert's machines used an intricate system of counterweights and gears, marking time with a precision that would have seemed miraculous to his contemporaries. But it wasn't just about telling time. Gerbert was teaching medieval Europe a new way of thinking about the world itself. Precise, mechanical, measurable. When he unveiled his water organ in Reims Cathedral, with its mathematically tuned pipes and automated pneumatic system, the congregation fell to their knees, believing they heard the music of heaven. They weren't entirely wrong. They were hearing the sound of the future. The magic of Gerbert's innovations wasn't in their immediate impact. Many of his original designs would take centuries to perfect. His genius lay in showing medieval Europe that the physical world could be understood, measured, and mastered through human ingenuity. When he died in 1003, popular rumors claimed he had been struck down for his dangerous knowledge. The truth was more profound. He had struck the first decisive blow against the very concept of the Dark Ages, proving that human progress didn't end with the fall of Rome. In his final years, looking out from the papal palace at the city of Rome below, Gerbert wrote to a former student, "The difference between a wise man and a fool is this: one measures time, the other merely lives in it." A millennium later, as we check our smartwatches and coordinate our lives by digital calendars, we're all living in the world that this shepherd boy from medieval France first imagined, where time itself bends to human will. The visionary legacy of Salvino Dharmatti. In the narrow, winding streets of late 13th century Florence, where artisans bent over their workbenches and scholars squinted at precious manuscripts, Salvino Dharmatti was about to spark a revolution that would change how humanity saw the world, quite literally. The aging craftsman had noticed something that plagued every workshop, scriptorium, and counting house in Europe. As people grew older, the fine details of their work began to slip away, lost in a frustrating blur. For centuries, this gradual dimming of vision had been accepted as an inevitable curse of aging. Dharmatti refused to accept this fate. Working with crystal and quartz, grinding and polishing with techniques borrowed from jewelers and adapted through countless failures, Dharmatti discovered something remarkable. Carefully curved pieces of glass could restore clarity to aging eyes. His earliest spectacles were crude by modern standards, two convex lenses mounted in bone or leather frames, balanced precariously on the nose. But their impact was nothing short of miraculous. Suddenly, skilled craftsmen could work well into their later years. Scribes could illuminate manuscripts without straining. Merchants could keep their ledgers accurate. In an age where literacy was a rare and precious skill, Dharmatti's invention meant that those who could read didn't have to stop. The guild masters of Florence initially tried to suppress his invention, fearing it would upset the careful balance of their workshops. But you can't keep light from spreading. Within decades, spectacle makers appeared in Venice, Paris, and London. Monasteries, those medieval centers of learning, became early adopters. One abbot wrote with barely contained joy, "These glass stones are a gift from God, allowing even the eldest among us to read as if we were young again." The price of books began to rise as older scholars, their eyesight restored, eagerly sought new manuscripts to read. The true genius of Dharmatti's invention wasn't just in the grinding of glass. It was in understanding that human limitations could be overcome through careful manipulation of the physical world. His spectacles were more than just tools. They were proof that the human body itself could be improved through technology. When he died in 1317, there could be no more fitting tribute than the one carved on his tomb in Florence. Here lies Salvino Dharmatti of Florence, inventor of spectacles. May God forgive his sins. Anno Domini 1317. What Dharmatti could not have known was that his curved pieces of glass would lead to far more than just reading aids. The principles he discovered would eventually guide the development of telescopes that would reveal the stars, microscopes that would expose the invisible world of cells, and camera lenses that would capture light itself. In finding a way to help aging craftsmen thread their needles, he had opened humanity's eyes to worlds both impossibly vast and infinitesimally small. The gunpowder alchemist. The invention that changed warfare forever. Black robes trailing in the pre-dawn mist, Brother Berthold Schwarz paced the courtyard of his Dominican monastery, haunted by the explosion that had nearly killed him the night before. The year was 1353, and like many educated men of his time, Schwarz pursued the art of alchemy alongside his religious duties. But what happened in his workshop was no failed attempt at transmuting lead into gold. He had created something far more transformative and far more dangerous. Behind the monastery's thick stone walls, Schwarz had been experimenting with a mysterious black powder that had made its way along the Silk Road from distant China. European alchemists had dismissed it as a curiosity, useful only for festival fireworks and theatrical displays. But Schwarz saw something different in those violent reactions, in the way the powder could shatter his strongest containers. While others sought the philosopher's stone, he had stumbled upon a force that would reshape the medieval world, not through mystical transformation, but through pure, destructive power. In his workshop, amid the shards of his latest experiment, Schwartz made a crucial leap of understanding. It wasn't enough to simply contain the powder's explosive force, it had to be directed. Working in secret, he designed an iron tube, sealed at one end, carefully measured his powder mixture, and added a heavy iron ball. The result was the first European cannon, a weapon that would make castle walls obsolete and transform warfare from a contest of armor into a science of ballistics. News of his invention spread like wildfire through the courts of Europe. Monastery walls couldn't contain such a powerful secret. Kings and princes sent agents to learn his formula, offering gold, titles, protection. But Schwartz was tormented by what he had unleashed. His letters from this period reveal a man wrestling with the moral weight of his discovery. "I sought to understand God's creation," he wrote, "and instead I have given men a new way to destroy it." The tragic irony of Schwartz's story is that his invention, born from peaceful scholarly curiosity, would make peace itself impossible in the old ways. The age of chivalry, of knights and castles, of sieges that could last for years, all of it would crumble before the power of gunpowder and the science of artillery. Stone walls that had stood for centuries were suddenly vulnerable. Warfare became a matter of mathematics and chemistry rather than personal courage. The medieval world had taken its first explosive step into modernity, and there was no going back. When Schwartz died, some say in an explosion of his own making, he left behind not just a weapon, but a new way of thinking about power itself. His investigations had shown that nature's forces could be harnessed and directed by human ingenuity. The age of organic power of human muscle, horse, and ox was giving way to something new. The age of chemical energy, of controlled explosions, of power that could be stored in barrels and transported across continents. The monk who had sought to transmute base metals into gold had instead transformed the very nature of human conflict. The Lady of the Loom, a forgotten innovator's legacy. She had no library of mathematical texts like Gerbert, no guild workshop like Dharmatti, no monastery laboratory like Schwartz. Her workshop was a humble cottage somewhere in medieval Europe, and her tools were the simple implements of spinning. The drop spindle that had been used since ancient times, worn smooth by generations of women's hands. History never recorded her name, but it recorded her genius in the device that would transform the textile industry and reshape the medieval economy: the spinning wheel. What drove her to innovation was necessity itself. Every thread in every garment, from peasant's smock to royal tapestry, had to be spun by hand. A single shirt could require miles of thread, each inch twisted into existence by fingers cramped from endless hours of labor. As she watched her daughters take up the same back-breaking work that had worn down their grandmothers, she began to imagine a different way. Why couldn't the motion of spinning be continuous, like a potter's wheel? Why couldn't gravity and momentum do what tired fingers struggle to achieve? Her invention was deceptively simple: a wheel turned by a foot treadle, driving a spindle that could twist fiber into thread with previously impossible speed. But its impact was revolutionary. A good spinner with a drop spindle might produce a pound of thread in a week. With the spinning wheel, she could produce that same pound in a single day. Suddenly, the bottleneck that had constrained textile production for millennia was broken. Markets flooded with affordable cloth. Peasant families could own multiple sets of clothing. The wool trade exploded, enriching merchants from Scotland to Sicily. More than just increasing production, the spinning wheel changed the social fabric of medieval Europe. It created the first cottage industry, allowing women to earn independent income while managing their households. In an age when most women's economic activities were controlled by fathers or husbands, spinning wheel operators gained unprecedented financial autonomy. Tax records from 14th century English villages show single women supporting themselves entirely through spinning, a form of independence previously unthinkable. The anonymous inventor of the spinning wheel never saw her name carved in marble or her story recorded in chronicles. But her legacy lived on in every thread, every cloth, every garment that clothed the expanding population of medieval Europe. She had done something far more profound than create a new technology. She had shown that innovation could come from anywhere, even from those whom history had taught to be silent. In workshops and cottages across Europe, other women began to look at their daily tasks with new eyes, wondering what else might be transformed by human ingenuity. In the end, perhaps it's fitting that we don't know her name. She represents countless medieval innovators whose improvements to daily life went unrecorded because they seemed too humble, too domestic, too ordinary to chronicle. But without her wheel, without her vision of a better way to work, the great merchant empires of medieval Europe might never have risen, and the textile revolution that helped birth the modern world might never have begun. The paper prophet, Ullman Stromer, and the birth of European papermaking. When Ullman Stromer first glimpsed an Italian paper mill in 1390, he saw more than just a new way to make writing material. He saw the future of human knowledge itself. Venice jealously guarded the secrets of papermaking, an art they had learned from Arab traders. But Stromer, a patrician merchant from Nuremberg with dreams bigger than his city's walls, knew that whoever could break this monopoly would control the currency of ideas itself. The project nearly ruined him. Converting his family's flour mill on the Pegnitz River into Germany's first paper manufactory meant battling not just technical challenges, but sabotage from Italian agents and local suspicion. The rhythmic pounding of the stamping hammers, turning rags into pulp, sounded to medieval ears like the footsteps of demons. Workers fled, believing the white sheets hanging to dry were shrouds for the dead. But Stromer persisted, protecting his secrets with contracts that threatened dire consequences for anyone who revealed his methods. His breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the city's executioner. Medieval justice provided him with an endless supply of linen clothing from the condemned, perfect raw material for papermaking. It was a gruesome supply chain that transformed the cast-off garments of the dead into fresh pages awaiting new ideas. When the first sheets of paper emerged from his mill in 1390, they cost 1/6 the price of parchment. Suddenly, books were no longer luxury items reserved for churches and nobles. Students could afford their own texts. Merchants could keep multiple copies of their records. Ideas could travel faster than ever before. But Stromer's greatest innovation wasn't technical, it was social. He created Europe's first papermaking guild, complete with quality standards and apprenticeship programs. His paper bore a watermark of a crowned head, a promise of quality that became the industry standard. When he published Die Bücher von mein Geschlecht und von Abenteuer in 1407, he became the first papermaker to write a book about his own business, printed on his own paper, a meta-textual achievement that would have been prohibitively expensive on parchment. The true measure of Stromer's success wasn't in the fortune he amassed, but in how quickly paper mills spread across Europe after he broke Venice's monopoly. Within decades, the price of paper fell so dramatically that a new class of professional writers emerged. When Johannes Gutenberg began experimenting with movable type half a century later, it was the ready availability of cheap paper that made his printing revolution possible. Stromer didn't just make paper, he made the Renaissance readable. In his old age, watching sheets of paper dry in the Nuremberg sun, Stromer wrote, "Each blank page is a door unopened, a thought unthought, a future waiting to be written." He died in 1407, never knowing that his innovation would help launch the greatest explosion of human knowledge in history. But every book printed, every idea shared, every thought preserved in the centuries that followed carried a whisper of his legacy, written on pages that owed their existence to a merchant who dared to break a monopoly and democratize the written word. The medieval foundations of modern innovation. Step into any modern office, laboratory, or workshop, and you'll find yourself surrounded by ghosts. Not the supernatural specters that haunted medieval imaginations, but the living echoes of innovations born in an age we wrongly dismissed as dark. That smartphone in your pocket measures time with a precision Gerbert of Aurillac dreamed of, while its screen protects itself with glass descended from Dharmatti's pioneering work in optics. The laptop where you store your ideas exists because Ullman Stromer dared to make writing affordable. Even the clothes you wear trace their origins to an unnamed woman's revolutionary wheel. These medieval innovators didn't just create new tools, they fundamentally changed how humans interact with the physical world. They showed us that nature's laws could be understood, harnessed, and redirected for human benefit. When Mark Zuckerberg speaks of the metaverse, when Elon Musk dreams of Mars colonies, when contemporary engineers wrestle with artificial intelligence, they are walking a path first blazed by these medieval minds who dared to imagine a world different from the one they inherited. The true Dark Ages are not behind us. They are what would have been, had these 5 innovators chosen to accept the world as they found it rather than reimagine what it could become. The chronicles tell us that on New Year's Eve, 999 AD, Europe trembled in fear of the millennium, expecting the world to end. Instead, it was about to begin. As we face our own millennium challenges, climate change, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, we would do well to remember these medieval pioneers. They remind us that innovation isn't just about new technology. It's about the courage to question inherited wisdom, the persistence to fail and try again, and the vision to see possibilities where others see only problems. The future, as always, belongs to those who dare to reimagine it.